Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. A little bit strange this, we're in the middle of the day. We don't usually do this in the daytime, Lou. We are here with the first of our World Cup daily shows, focusing on the 2026 World Cup that, of course, gets underway tonight with the opening game being Mexico versus South Africa. I'm Chris Bell, did I say, joined by Lewis Sale every day between now, every weekday at least, between now and the end of the World Cup. I will be joined, hopefully, by one of our usual band of brothers from the West Yorkshire Football Show, just to preview and review, really, the games that have been in the middle of the night before and the games coming up later that day. First things first, how are we, Lou? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Like I say, it's a little bit odd doing it this time of the day, but listen, we're going to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching all these games, aren't we? So this is going to be, nocturnal probably during the next 3 weeks, so let's do it.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit crazy. We haven't had a World Cup, I don't think, or that I can remember, with these sorts of time differences since probably Japan and Korea in 2002.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly so. But listen, we're World Cup favourite, and it comes down for 4 years, doesn't it? So we can make a couple of sacrifices for a few weeks, can't we?
Yeah, we'll do his best. Although when you're having to ring me at 5 to 1 tomorrow or something because I'm fast asleep on the sofa, having tried to stay up for the South Korea CZECHIA, you'll know why. First things first, I guess we should possibly, as we were going to do in the coming games, start by reflecting on the game from last night for England, at least. In this case, of course, a friendly win over Costa Rica in the final warm-up game. And ultimately, I mean, I know we look at things a little bit differently with last night. I didn't think there was a great deal to grumble about. Three goals, plenty of chances created, job done against a physically strong Costa Rican side, even if they are not as technically gifted as they have been, shall we say, in previous years. They're always a side for me that are usually a regular at the World Cup, and lo and behold, they drop into the same category as the likes of Denmark and Italy and Cameroon as it gets to the biggest World Cup in terms of number of teams, and somehow they screw up the qualification process and don't make it. But a good win for England, I thought.
Yeah, listen, good win. Friendly was an interesting word to use, probably on the pitch and kind of between our chats as well off the pitch, wasn't it? In terms of how we thought. Listen, now I don't disagree. I thought it was a very solid win, decent enough performance. It's exactly probably what you want just before your first game. There were a couple of things that, to be fair, I'd rather it happen then rather than the group games. I know we'll get ready shortly, but yeah, listen, good win, solid enough. Didn't seem to be any injuries. And also, again, I know we're going to touch on it, but, that slight bit of disruption before kickoff, that's probably going to happen at certain occasions during the World Cup. So at least we've got that potential hurdle overcome. Yeah, listen, solid enough night. Some good things, some things that definitely need to be worked on. So when you probably put it like that, it's actually not far from being a perfect warm-up game for that game against Croatia.
Yeah, I know it was told about last night during the game as well that they've got an additional kind of behind closed doors game today against Miami FC, who are I think third or fourth tier in the American kind of soccer league system. So it's just again, that's just purely for minutes really into players that didn't get the game time yesterday. You touched on that delay. I mean, we saw it, I guess, in the Club World Cup this time last year, how the weather in America is just frankly so insanely different to what we're used to for a start. But we really did see that with those torrential storms before the game that obviously ended up delaying the kickoff by an hour.
I think it's strange, isn't it? Because it's something that obviously they're used to over in America and we're not. If that's happening before a game here, then there's a potential risk of it being abandoned. But you have to look at the drainage. Having been to Orlando years ago, it's quite common then, real sudden bursts of rain, really heavy downpours. It can cause quite a few issues, both on the pitch and around the surrounding areas as well. But, when you saw the guys who were out there doing reports and this, that and the other, the drainage were unbelievable. But that's obviously been built because that's what they're used to. And I know that, again, they were saying on the TV, that they were speaking to people who in and around Orlando, and we're saying, yeah, this is normal. This is what we're used to. It's no different. And it's going to have to be something that some teams are going to have to, I think, probably overcome during this World Cup. I don't see this probably being the only occasion that might happen. And that's just the world that we live in, and that's just how it is, and it's how we deal with it. Listen, I think us being involved in football long enough to know in teams in and around different areas that it shouldn't really disrupt them. It's just a thing. It's not going to really upset the whole group and a team and put everything, out of schedule. It's just a small delay in the grand scheme of things. And as much as for fans, it's probably more frustrating for them, for the players and staff, it's actually just a good opportunity just to get around each other, have a bit of a chat, just relax a little bit, don't get too worked up about it, and just do the job. And yeah, listen, they did a good job, did England last night, dealt with it really well. And obviously the conditions eventually came out to be absolutely an hour before the ground pretty much underwater to being pretty much perfectly playable. I think even before stuff on social media, we've seen it were really dry. So it probably needed a little bit of rain to make it even better.
Yeah, it was absolutely staggering just how impressive that drainage is on the pitch. I mean, I know it's a very new stadium. It was opened in 2017 for when Orlando City joined the MLS kind of pyramid. But it really did clear very, very quickly. And as you say, the fact that they had the sprinklers back on before kickoff was remarkable, because obviously you need that moisture on the surface. It disappeared prior to kickoff. I guess in terms of the relaxing beforehand, it's one thing when it's a friendly against Costa Rica. If that happens just before a semi-final of the World Cup, it might be a little bit different, but time will tell. We will see when we get to that stage. Let's start then to look ahead to today. And the opening game is at 8 o'clock tonight on ITV. Mexico versus South Africa from the Azteca Stadium. And look, it's always great, these opening games. You never... In the past, they either throw up exactly what you expect you're going to get from the opening game, or something completely different, to be fair, as we've seen going back a few years to previous games.
It's going to be quite iconic to have it at the Azteca, for us of a certain vintage. It's quite a special stadium in and around football. Obviously, we've seen it down the years, hold games before. And it's going to be a challenge for a lot of teams to go in there with the altitude. And again, the conditions are going to be probably quite a bit different from what they are going to be in USA and Canada. So you'd think that Mexico might have a slight advantage because they're used to it. I'm not convinced by Mexico, if I'm being honest. I'm not going to lie. I'm no Mexican football expert or South African expert. But, when a World Cup comes around, you do a little bit of research, a little bit of digging around to find out ones to watch out for and what possibilities could be. But I think Mexico, for me, this is a group where it's as tight as many other groups, if not the tightest group in terms of who can qualify. You could pretty much say any team could finish first or fourth. It's going to be a real challenge for those teams to get out of that group. And like we know that some teams, if you do miss out on that best third place, then you probably deserve to go on, because you should be pretty much getting through that groups. But yeah, I think Mexico, listen, that whole emotion around it, might just drive them through. But there's a few players that South Africa have got in their squad, which they've got pace to burn and really cause a lot of teams problems, especially in this group. And the two lads from Orlando Pirates, and I think the one that they're really bigging up is Mofokeng, which they're kind of pinning the hopes on. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes, because they haven't got those renowned names that we've seen in the past, like Benny McCarthy, and I think Mark Fish down the years. We remember the 2010 goal that was synonymous down the history. We don't see many players like that now in Europe, and I believe that's because it's just as lucrative to play in South Africa at the moment, and they're a bit of an unknown quantity for most of us over here because we don't watch South African football. We can't pretend that we do. So it's interesting. Listen, any other time, Mexico, South Africa, many people are tuning in. Opening day of the World Cup, it's going to get millions, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think you can say this for both sides, to be fair, that they're possibly not in terms of they're not as kind of packed with names that we know, because of players that or certainly more players that play in the domestic leagues. There were one or two, of course, Mexico, Hector Alvarez, who I think was at West Ham. You've got a couple of good forward players in there as well. Is Raul Jimenez gone? I'm trying to think whether he's gone. I know he's just signed back at Wolves, but that's a different matter with Wolves at the moment.
Yep.
It's obviously was going to be, will you be watching, I guess is the question, the opening ceremony beforehand, because I'm not sure what they've got planned for it. Usually I don't. However, this is an American opening ceremony, so this could be wild.
Probably this might surprise you, Chris, but being a grumpy old man the way I am, I don't really do opening and closing ceremonies. So it'll probably be something. If something happens, I might watch it on the news later on. But yeah, I probably won't be tuning in. But yeah, it's opening ceremonies down the past in America with the ball not being put in the back of a net from the years in 1994. Let's see if there's anything else that happens.
Yeah, good afternoon to Jed, who's one of our regulars, to be fair. Huddersfield Town family tuned in from, I'm going to muller this, Hua Hin in southern Thailand. Nice to have you with us, Jed. As always, mate, thanks for joining us. I mean, I don't know what the time difference is going to be for Jed if he's in Thailand trying to watch these World Cup games. I'd say it's tricky enough for us to work out.
Yeah, true, yeah, absolutely. But no doubt Jed and the team made in Thailand will be tuning in and going worldwide, aren't we? Not just West Yorkshire, we're going global.
We've been global all along, to be fair, because Jed's usually somewhere in Australia when he's watching the Town Talk shows with Downsy and the boys. As for the second game, South Korea versus Czechia, again, this Group A, one that I think is very difficult to call. I think it's quite even group across the board. South Korea, I don't know why, I've always got a soft spot for the sides like South Korea and Japan, because technically the players are so gifted in most cases. Against the Czechia side, that again is one of those nations that, whilst they have got some very, very good players in there, that we just don't necessarily see on a weekly basis because they don't play in our league. They don't have as many familiar names to English fans. It doesn't by any means mean that they have less quality than we're necessarily used to.
Yeah, potentially. From doing what we've been doing in research and having a look at some of these teams, get the impression that South Korea may not be the same side as what they were in years gone by. I know the coach has been a captain, I think, in the 2002 World Cup, and they're not necessarily not aligned, but some people have questioned about the manager. Listen, they've still got Son, who on his day can light up them group stages. Obviously Huang Lee Chan as well. So they've got, like I said, they've got personnel in that team that could surprise a few people. But Czechia, that we know as well, they struggled to get through them qualifiers. I remember, I think we were watching something on the other day that I think we went to the Faroe Islands and didn't do well, and there were a lot of animosity, and they've come in at the back door really to come through and get into this group stage. And like we've mentioned, it's a very, very tight group. So it's going to be interesting. I think every game in this group, you could see kind of result. You do look through some of these groups, and with respect to some of the other nations, you'd expect others to beat others. Where this group, I think it's really difficult to call. So from a it might not be the best on the eye, but what it'll be is I think it'll be definitely committed. It will definitely there'll be a lot riding on each game in this group, I think, which makes it interesting. And sometimes that's what you want from your first few games, is to get into the room of everything, bearing conditions what they're going to be, teams fighting. Because the first game, if you win that, it could potentially guarantee you through the group straight away. That's how crucial that first win is. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these two games go.
I think the South Koreans might just take it tonight in that one, to be honest, because you look through the squad actually, and there's probably more players that play in Europe than you realise. There's a few that play in the Bundesliga. They've got Lee Kang-in, of course, who's in a remarkable talent in that PSG side as well. There's the lads that, well, I think one or two of them have been at Celtic previously, like Oh Hyun-kyu. You've got Young Ji-sung, who's at Swansea. There's the centre mid as well, that's at Birmingham City. So I think there's actually possibly more about the South Korean side than first meets the eye. As Lou decides to cover his camera up at this stage. So yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised to see a South Korean win in that one. The difficulty is going to be staying up for it. 3 a.m. kickoff for that one for us.
Yeah, Yeah, I know it might be a sleep game to that one, or it could possibly mean it might be recorded and watched it first thing in the morning, depending how I go.
Well, whilst we're on that kind of the how do we compensate for these middle of the night games, is it me or is it pretty poor that neither the BBC nor ITV are doing a daytime highlight show?
Aren't I?
Neither of them are doing any form of show that where you can, and you'd think again this would be the one tournament for a UK audience where even if they just stuck a 15-minute highlight show after the 12 o'clock news or something in the middle of the day, it'd go down swimmingly. I've seen so many conversations on Twitter for people, in particular, the super nerds that want to watch the highlights but don't want to know the score of the game before they start watching.
Oh wow!
Which, of course, a match of the day you wouldn't know the score beforehand. Whereas obviously it's all right saying the highlights are going to be on YouTube, but every thumbnail is going to have the score of the game that they don't want to see. So yeah, it's a nightmare in that respect. Coming back to Jed for a second, he says the Socceroos game versus Turkey is at 11 a.m. Sunday morning here in Thailand. So for comparison's sake, for us, that Socceroos game, Australia v Turkey, is at 5 in the morning for us. That is 5 a.m. I think Sunday morning.
I think we may have to go to Thailand then.
If it's coping better with the time differences, I'm all for it. I'm not sure if it's in the budget. I have to speak to Brownie and see if we can get that in the West Yorkshire Football Show budget, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure the expenses go that far, do they?
Just whilst I've got this kind of graphic up for us, this is obviously the first 5 days or so of the tournament. Obviously, this is what we're contending with in terms of time differences and games at all times. Interesting, of course, tomorrow, which we'll be looking ahead to, is Canada versus Bosnia, and as well as USA versus Paraguay. So there's some interesting games coming up. The weekend is going to be hectic. As I say, we're not going to be doing these daily shows over the weekend, unless somebody else wants to pick it up. But I think I've got plans. So come to Monday, it's going to be an absolute nightmare because I think we're going to have 9 games to look back on.
Yeah, there's going to be a fair few wanting to go through on Monday. Wow, yeah. How are we going to do that? It might be a very, very quick 15, 20 minutes. I mean, we keep saying that and we'll probably stretch for about half an hour, 45. But yeah, we're going to have to keep it very tight, aren't we?
We are. And that's not our forte, is it? Keeping shows tight into to time.
No, not one bit.
We will, though, look at finishing up finally, I guess, with then predictions for these first 2 games. Then 4 score predictions for Mexico versus South Africa and for South Korea versus Czechia. And then, Lou, I think you're giving me the pleasure of joining me for tomorrow's show as well, which will be at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon because I'm factoring in an extra hour's napping time for staying and watching the South Korea game.
Tonight, it wouldn't surprise me if both ended 1-1. I could see them both being draws, if I'm being honest, which keeps it even more.
It leaves you wide open.
Yeah, I think so. Gut instinct. I'm going to go 1-1 for both games.
Okay, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Mexico win. I just think opening night, that home crowd behind them, I think is going to go some way. And I'm going to go for a 3-1 South Korea win over Czechia. So we're going to go with pretty polar comparisons there, I think it's fair to say.
It's not like us to not necessarily agree on things, Mr. Bell.
Just before we leave, Jed's tipping Christian Pulisic, an American, to be one of his players for the tournament to watch, and he's going for a 3-0 Mexico win. Okay, thank you very much, Lou. That was a short and sharp preview, really, of today's games. The World Cup does, of course, get underway at 8 o'clock this evening in UK time. Of course, there's the opening ceremony beforehand if you're not a grumpy old man like Lou and you fancy some what's going to be, as I say, I'm sure, bizarre entertainment before kickoff. We'll be back tomorrow from 1 o'clock with another one of our World Cup daily shows. Don't forget to get your comments in if you like what you've seen. Let us know your thoughts and views, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.